moving on from that rather graphic and lewd, I say, lewd comment. I'll suck your dick for a death strike. We don't want random Warcry box on the camera, do we? What about this? Gosh. Based Dwarf King on a shield bearer. I have had a revelation during my time playing Warhammer. It came to me whilst I was playing a game of Old World. Now, this is going to sound like an Old World thing, but before you click off the stream, chill. It's very much a 40k thing, but Old World made me realize it. One of the biggest criticisms of Warhammer 40k 10th edition has been that it lacks flavor. Now, as someone who has not been overly invested in the lore of Warhammer 40k for 6-7 years, I still listen to the same audiobooks. I still, if I want an easy listen whilst I'm driving, I put on Eyes and Horn. I put on Gaunt's Ghosts. I put on Night Lord Trilogy or something. The point is that I'm not overly invested in modern lore. And so people said at the beginning of 10th edition that they felt like a lot of flavor had been removed from the game. And I didn't, I thought I understood what they meant by that. I thought, looking at when the indexes came out, I thought that, yeah, there's no lore in them. But, when we had the great reset of 8th edition, there wasn't really any lore in those indexes either. And 10th edition was definitely a reset. New stat lines, new ways of a lot of new ways of weapons working, significant change ups to legacy systems like combi weapons, which might not sound like a big deal, but it is. There was a lot of changes in 10th edition, and so I thought that when people were like, oh well, the lore, like your flavor unit now is like it's gone from like a full page in your codex, like a couple of sentences data card. And I thought that was where people were saying the flavor had gone. But I now realize that is not what people mean, or not the whole story. When people talk about flavor being removed from Warhammer 40k. Now, my first inkling. Before we get into where the revelation came from, I've been playing competitively for a long time, and I have been playing 10th edition since it came out. And since the start of 10th edition, I've really embraced, more so than ever before in my time in my life, I've embraced the competitive side of the game. Every single time there's an opportunity for me to go to a tournament in my local area, I go to it. Whether it's, sometimes it's every weekend I'm at a tournament. Sometimes it's twice in a week I'm at a tournament. I'm very fortunate there are a lot of tournaments near where I live. And I've got a couple of very active game stores. I've been so focused on playing the competitive side of 40k that the idea of flavor kind of lost its meaning a little bit and fell by the wayside a little bit. And so I've been playing 10th edition, and I've been like, yeah, this is just how 40k is now. It's just how wargaming is now. And this is how all war games should be. Like, we should strive to have those clear, even if they are maybe not super organized with 10th edition, though I suspect that will slowly but surely get better. But rules as written is very clear now. And whilst the flavor text of a lot of 40k rules is non-existent, not even lacking, it's non-existent. Now, people by and large, they understand how a rule works. And I can't remember the last time I got into a conversation with someone where I was like, no, the rule doesn't work that way, it rules this way. No, the only time that a rules question ever comes up is if someone says, oh, can you show me that rule, does it exist? Because people know how the rules work, they just want to make sure that everyone's, the units have got the rule that people are saying. And that's been from me asking someone to show me, and people have asked me to show them as well. It's just a very normal question. So the rules are understood, and so playing the game very competitively, I've just been in that pocket. I've been in that zone, and I've kind of been marinating in that mindset And I've been marinating in that environment. And I've been in there. I've been in so deeper than I've ever been before, that truly I forgot what it used to be like. And I forgot what people really meant when they said flavor. And I just I've been just looking forwards and living in the moment, and looking forward and living in the moment, that I haven't been looking backwards and really seeing what we used to have and comparing it to what we have now. And then Old World came out, and Old World has shown me has been this catalyst for this epiphany, and I now get it. It's taken me a while to get there, but I now get it when people say 40k is lacking flavor, because it's not just. It's literally, I only got it this weekend. To put this in perspective, I've only just had the scales fall from my eyes. I can tell you exactly what moment it was. This Saturday, it was about 4 p.m. and I was filming a battle report with my Empire versus Skaven. Now, I'll come back to that in a moment. Because my first inklings of like flavor, of sort of my first taste of flavor again, okay, was when I was reading the Old World rules. I was reading the flavor text, like with the pigeon bombs, for example, and how it doesn't just describe the effect. It doesn't just detail the effect. It also describes what's happening. So, you release the pigeon, you roll a dice on a 2, and the pigeon just flies home, perhaps wisely. On a 4, someone gets brained by a chunk of metal, but the grenade doesn't go off. On a 5, the pigeon flies to its destination and completes its mission, and a bit of dry humor there. Then now plays the blast template kind of thing. But even then, that wasn't true flavor. That was just an inkling. That was like when Neo was in the Matrix, and Morpheus describes to him like, there's something wrong, there's something not right, but you can't put your finger on it. And what it is you don't know, but it's there. And reading those rules, that was the first time that I had that. Seeing that flavor text was the first indication. Like, hang on, yeah, this is cool. I'm being drawn into the game. But really, that wasn't it. That was just an inkling, but it wasn't truly what people meant when they said flavor has left 40k, or saying that Old World, the rules are much more flavorful. What it was, I'm getting to the point now. I know some of you are like, Mordian, get on with it, but this is all very important context, and it will circle back around to 40k in a moment. What it was Father Grigori. Now, for those of you that haven't seen my battle report this weekend, I did an Old World battle report, and I've done a follow-up one already, but it's not out yet. But I filmed it, and in the Old World battle report, I have a character in my army called Father Grigori. Now, this was just, I had 60 points left over at the end, well, about 80 points left over at the end of my list, and I didn't know what to do, and I thought, well, screw it, I've not taken a warrior priest yet, so I'll just put a warrior priest in the list. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad, I'll just try it. Now, me and my opponent just came up with this backstory to Father Grigori completely on the fly. We were like, because my Empire army is not a distinguished one, it's a mercenary company. They're called Vossenberg's Vagabonds, and basically they're semi-professional, but they're really a home for a lot of the characters are like exiles from other nations. So for example, my wizard is a Bretonnian damsel model, who I say is, she's been exiled from Bretonia or dabbling in dark arts she shouldn't have dabbled in. And that was because the first time I used her, I used demonology for her. She was the only wizard model I had, and then we sort of built the story up. Now, with Father Grigori, we just said on, Grigori, it sounds kind of like Kislevite, kind of Russian, or kind of Slavic, maybe we should say. So let's make a bit of a story up for him. And we were like, so basically he's been kicked out of, he's been kicked out of Kislev. because he was a Sigmar worshipper, and in Kislev they worship Ulrich. And so he's basically, obviously he's from Kislev, where we know they love to get, like, they love their vodka, and Father Grigori loves his vodka more than anyone else, so he's basically permanently shit-faced. And we told everyone that he got kicked out for being a Sigmar worshipper, but as it turns out, he basically got kicked out because he was permanently shit-faced, and he basically worshipped any god that he could remember at the time. And as Godlike Poet said earlier in the stream, he's like Benny from, and that's another thing I didn't even think about, that's another little bit of world building. He's like Benny from The Mummy, just pulling out the different necklaces and just like, fuck, hopefully this one will answer my prayer this time. But he's not really dedicated to any of them. And he basically can't really remember any of the prayers. And what was funny is during the game, Father Grigori failed every single turn to get his prayer off. It's meant to be a 50-50, and he failed every single time to get his prayer off. And obviously this basically was because he was so shit-faced the entire time. He couldn't get his prayers out. But what happened at the latter end of the game, Father Grigori, despite the fact he failed to get a prayer off every single time, actually ended up redeeming himself because he got into a challenge with one of the Skaven chieftains, one of the big head honchos in the Skaven army. And he had absolutely no right to win this challenge in any way, shape, or form. But he actually managed to win it. The Skaven guy, the Skaven chieftain, managed to scuttle away. But Father Grigori didn't quite catch him. But what sort of fed into this narrative, Father Grigori is not just a disgraced priest. He is, like we said, permanently bladdered. He's permanently shit-faced. And so he's like that guy. Anyone who's been to the bar or been to the club, and it's, there's loud music playing, and there's always someone there. It's typically, it's not always an older gentleman, but sometimes it could be any age, to be honest. But they're a creepy bastard. And basically, there's always some guy who's absolutely shit-faced, dribbling in the ear of some poor woman who is just trying to order her drink at the bar. And the moment that maybe the poor maybe the creepy bastard orders her a drink, thinking because he's drunk off his noggin, and she just sort of politely declines, gets the drink, and then scuttles off to her friends. And the creepy bastard is left there, confused why his dribbling in her ear hasn't worked. And that's Father Grigori. He's the permanently shit-faced guy at the bar who basically is a bit of a creepy bastard. And so the whole thing but tragically, probably quite lonely and probably looking for love, but also like I said, creepy bastard, right? The thing with Father Grigori is he was shit-faced. The thing with Father Grigori is he won this challenge. And the story we built up was that if Father Grigori didn't win the challenge, he'd basically just stumbled into the Skaven chieftain, thought it was a beautiful lady, and was like, "Oh, come here, beautiful, give us a kiss." And the Skaven guy was like, "No, man thing, no, what are you doing?" And basically scuttled off out of there as quickly as he could. And so the nickname we came up with Father Grigori was actually the Ravenous Grigori, because he's permanently shit-faced and he's permanently horny, but he never gets any, because he's a disgrace at the end of the day. And so we likened it to the joke in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where it's like the ravenous bug-blattered beast of Trial, daft as a brush, but very, very ravenous. So where's lore come from? So we then so this was all world building that was all done completely on the fly with this character, because we took the character that we never normally take, and we just gave him a great weapon and a 20-point set of magical armor. And the funny thing was the magical armor actually ended up protecting him. And what we realized is he's not actually got magical armor on. It's because he's shit-faced. So basically, it's like you can't, sometimes he feels it because it's just an actual glow. Sometimes he doesn't feel it because he's just that drunk. So this all feeds into basically, in the next game, and don't worry, this is all coming back to 40k, don't worry. In the next game, I took Father Grigori again, except for this time, I took him with exactly the same loadout as last time. This time, I put him in the same unit as last time. And this time, I played into the narrative even more, and Father Grigori ended up meeting the bride of Grigori, which was a rat ogre. Now, I won't tell you the outcome of that, but there was truly a very funny and very epic moment where Father Grigori, met his bride. And he's like, come here. He's like, no, you're a big one. A big lass like you needs a big man like me. You know what I mean? And it's a fucking rat ogre. But this time, Father Grigori was maybe a little bit more on form because in this battle, I won't spoil too much, but this time, Father Grigori was very successful at getting his prayers off. So maybe he wasn't mumbling incoherently. Maybe he'd reached that perfect peak moment of shit-facedness, where actually, it was all Dutch courage and pure fucking confidence, right? Maybe. And maybe he took on something that he never should have been able to take on, Now, all of this, everything I've spent the last 10 minutes boring you to death with, has all come from playing 2 games with 1 character and just the crazy shit that happened in the game. That is flavor. Now, where did this flavor come from? The flavor came from the fact that Father Grigori was unique in his loadout on the battlefield and his rules on the battlefield. So let us compare Father Grigori to an Imperial Guard character. Like any Imperial Guard character. Every Imperial Guard character, every Imperial Guard Castellan you see is going to have a plasma pistol and a power fist. Every Imperial Guard platoon commander you see is going to have a plasma pistol and a power fist. Every Commissar is going to have a plasma pistol and a power sword. Every single Death Corps Marshal is going to have a plasma pistol and a power sword. Every single Regimental Preacher is going to have the same loadout. Because so many options have been consolidated, and because all war gear is now baked into a unit's cost, you don't get unique characters. You get very, very similar characters that you see multiple times across armies and the same in every army. Because why would you take a preacher with a las pistol and a chainsword when you can take a preacher with the holy pistol and a power maul? Why would you take an officer with a las pistol and chainsword when you can take an officer with a plasma pistol and a power fist? And so because things have become so simplified, streamlined, cookie cutter, one might say, you lose. And because characters do things so, possibly you could say so reliably, maybe you could say so consistently, because 40k is a much more focused game now. You don't really get many epic moments from your own characters. So I cannot tell you the last time that one of my Imperial Guard officers single-handedly won a challenge, as it were, in combat, because it doesn't really happen. But I can tell, but it's not to say all flavor's gone, but here's an example of when you do feel it in 40k with a named character like Strachan. Why? And it's sort of, I've just had this epiphany now. Why is Strachan so much fun to use? Because he is unique in comparison to every other guard character out there. He brings something to the table he brings a feeling, he brings a flavor to the table that you cannot get anywhere else in the Guard army. And as a result, it's why Strachan, the moment any Guard player uses him, falls in love with him. Because he's different, he's unique, he's doing something outside of your expectations. And he often is very epic and does lots of epic things. But you don't, so 200 Rat Strength goes, right, you still get crazy stories like that with named characters, but that's because the named characters are unique. You don't get them with unique characters. And I think what is really missing in 40k at the moment is, I remember when I used to review army lists in sort of 8th and 9th edition, and someone would send me a list with, well, my officer's got a plasma pistol and a power sword. And I'd be like, well, that's just 10 points wasted, take that off. And they'd be like, yeah, but he earned those because something happened in a campaign. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. If that's what he always takes, that's what he always takes. But, you know, you are 10 points down, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. That's what's missing with flavor, with 40k. Because there is no unit options. You just take the best stuff. Because there are so many, we've talked about this before, so I'm not going to tread over old ground. Because there are so many dice and so many rerolls, the outcome is often very predictable. You can fairly easily work out, if I apply this unit and this unit to this enemy unit, then this X result happens. But in old world, every single character in your army is unique. Let me take you through a quick list. I have a general of the Empire who has the duelist blades and full plate armor. He also has the white cloak. You don't need to know what those are. Those are just all the upgrades I've been able to give him. I have another general of the Empire, like Castellan, Deathcore Marshal. He has the Sword of Battle. He has also got full plate armor, but he's also got a shield, so he's more armored. And that's it. He doesn't have a ward save. And then I've got my Captain of the Empire, who's got the Sword of Might, and has also got Talisman of Protection, and is my Battle Standard Bearer. And then I've got the aforementioned Father Grigori, and then I've got my Wizard, and I've got, and they're the main characters, right? Those are, even if you just take out the Wizard, those are basically 4 characters, all doing roughly the same thing, supporting my state troops. 3 of them are found in the same entry, Commanders of the Empire. They're all different. They all feel different when I use them. They're all equipped different. They're all unique. I've got names for each one. The guy with 2 blades, Bremerdan Gorst. The guy with the sword and shield, that is Zaldan Luther. The captain with the banner, that is Severard. And then we've got Father Grigori, like we said. That is where the flavor is missing in 40k. Because there are no options to make your models truly unique. And because those models perform very reliably, like Father Grigori never got his prayer off that first game. That fed into his flavor. But then when Father Grigori did get his prayer off many times in the second game, it felt even more special. Because of how bad he'd been in the last game, it fed into the funniness of him getting it off this time in this game. And so not to repeat myself, but that is where that is finally I get it. When people say 40k doesn't have any flavor, I get it now. 100%. I get it. Now, I want to make something clear here. This is not me shitting on Warhammer 40k. I very, very, very much enjoy playing Warhammer 40k, and I very much enjoy playing it competitively, because I am, at heart, quite a competitive person. You know, I like to win. I don't care about losing. I don't get salty about losing, but I do enjoy winning. And so, the main takeaway from this game is, if you are someone who plays war games for flavor, and you are struggling to scratch that itch with 40k, don't give up, because there are games out there that do it. And so, more so than ever now, I see 40k as the game that quote unquote play professionally. It's what I play almost for work, and I enjoy playing it, and I enjoy doing it well, or as well as I can do, don't want to sound arrogant, and I enjoy being as competitive as I can. That's where meta Mordian hangs out. But flavor Mordian, I must be able to come up with a better a better name for it than that. But narrative Mordian, now that's where I really enjoy playing Old World, and so that's kind of the epiphany that I had over this weekend. I cannot express. It was like a lightning bolt hit my brain. That's the epiphany that I had. Now the question is, as much as we enjoy playing 40k competitively, as much as the game is more balanced now, I mean, just which way is better? The way of the flavor or the way of the meta? It could be like I said, you have different games to scratch different itches. It'd be interesting to know where the majority of it is. I think there is a balance though. I think there is a balance to it. Because full competitive balanced meta way, that's like chess basically. Everything is set, and even though you might be surprised, everything is fairly predictable. You know where things move, set, all that kind of stuff, right? The other way is everything flavor all the way, and that's when people don't even play with fucking points values, which is, me personally, I struggle with that because I need to have that structure bit, just like that sort of inbuilt sense of fairness. Warforged makes a good point. I feel a good game would do both. Yeah, I think 40k is, in some ways, 40k is trying to do both. So the first thing to mention is Syriade makes a good point. A lot of the flavor is in Crusade. Indeed. But then Crusade being a separate game, it's just not as big. Do 40k players want flavor, or do we want balance? The other thing is that I think 40k is trying to do it now, but they fucked it up slightly, even with match play. So let's look at some of the detachments and some of the armies in 40k. So I reckon that you could look at Chaos Space Marines as the best example. Chaos Space Marines have a many number of detachments, a great number of detachments. And some of those are very powerful, like Renegade Raiders, Packbound Zealots. And then some of them are pretty shit, but very flavorful, like Scepters, pretty shit, very flavorful. Sorry, Warforged, but Warp Talons, or Dread Talons, very flavorful, but very shit. The problem is that whilst those detachments are somewhat flavorful, it's still missing that individual character. Like, if I take a Chaos Lord and I put him in any of the different Chaos attachments, any of them, he has the same loadout, because you're just going to pick the best loadout, because there are no points associated with it. So you'd be an idiot not to. A Chaos Lord is going to be the same in every single one. Go over to another army that, if you go over to an army that might is like more all flavor all the way, with which, or all feeling all the way, which is G-Cynical. And again, it doesn't matter. If I take a Patriarch, or I take a Primus, or I take any of those characters, and G-Cynical is an army built on its characters, it doesn't matter. That is the same stat line and the same ability, and I have almost zero way I can change that. As Syriade has very well pointed out here, what may change is what lords you want. So you don't take a, I'm making this off the top of my head, but you don't take a Chaos Lord and a Chaos Cult detachment. You do take one of Renegade Raiders. Now, 200 Rats Trenchcoat makes a great point here. To be fair, we mostly just took Las Pistol and Chainsaw with no upgrades on all officers back when we paid points. Now, that's a very good point. And almost the most important point, which is when we had the option as 40k players, the majority of us still took the most efficient choice. So is 40k one of those games where people inherently, even if they say they want flavor, majority of people actually want balance? Let's put some perspective here. Use an example close to my heart. Thanatos. At Thanatos, there are two teams. There is the Loyalist team and there is the Heretic team. Often, or the Imperial team and the Chaos team. The Imperial team, and both teams attract very different players. The Imperial team puts a huge amount of effort planning, coordinating their armies, their lists, and what tables each player is going to play on, try and achieve best output, best outcome. And as a result, the Imperial team has, in theory, most events because they won the most tables both times. But the Chaos team does none of that. Chaos team doesn't plan or really coordinate who's going to go on which table. They just sort of make sure there's enough people on each table to make sure it's balanced. And they don't plan and coordinate their lists, make sure that they're all mutually supporting each other. And they don't go, and the night before the event, when we're setting everything up, the Chaos team sits around getting wankered at Element Games and doing their best to help set up, whilst the Imperial team is, they help set up as well, don't get me wrong, but the Imperial team, once things are set up, will quickly go and have a team meeting. And so, and I'm not disparaging any team here or wanking any team off, let me be clear, but there's two very different kind of players and personality on display. The Imperial players are the ones that are trying to win and are almost being a bit more competitive and are trying to plan and coordinate as much as possible. What you could call the competitive players. And the Chaos team is what you could describe as the flavor players. Both sides are coming to the same event, but both sides are wanting very different things from the event. So it's one of those is which community is almost more powerful inside 40k? That might be the question. I don't have an answer. But 40k has lost a lot of flavor over 8th, 9th, 10th. 40k has lost a lot of flavor, both on sort of flavor text, the way the rules are described, and the way your characters are now built. A lot of the games have a lot of flavor, and yet the game is more popular than ever. That's the question. So maybe we should have a little bit of a poll. Should we have a little bit of a flash poll? Because I don't have the answer. I can tell you now, I enjoy both games immensely. But both games are very, very, very different. Which, now be 100% honest. Take a moment to think about it. Think back, don't look at old editions of rose-tinted glasses. 9th edition could arguably have had more flavour, but arguably was a lot less balanced. 8th edition, you could argue, had a fair bit of flavour, but was pretty imbalanced at times. 7th edition and 6th edition had so much flavour, but also, I think going back to the last time you could really customize characters in 40k beyond a bit of war gear, and we're talking like giving characters like Bionics and Medallion Crimsons and all that kind of stuff. I think the last time was like 4th or 5th edition. Sounds crazy. Does 5th edition have individual character upgrades like war gear selection? I think it did. So a lot of that went. Yeah. When was the last time your codex had an armory? Because that's what it used to be. Old World had, or Fantasy had magic items. 40k had the armory and war gear. So let's see. Be honest. Think back to all the times in previous editions when you got fucking stomped because it was unbalanced, and weigh that up against all the times when something epic happened on the tabletop. And think back on what what impacted you more at the time, and think back on what you remember most from those editions. That's the big one. Mini dingback. This argument is essentially casual play versus competitive play. It's not so much actually. There's an element of that mini dingback, but I want to take it a step further. It's about having flavor in competitive play. So it's more flavor, like I said, it's more flavor versus balance. Because casual versus competitive is like playing versus your mates versus playing a tournament. Flavor versus balance is how balanced is the game versus how epic is the game. And you can have balanced casual play and flavorful casual play, and you can have balanced competitive play and flavorful competitive play. So it's slightly different. It's a little twist on it. So let's just let that poll run for a little bit. Yeah, the Warp Forge. The best games I've played were always been games that were back and forth the last dice roll. The issue is that in every edition, those games were too few and far between. Indeed, I have had some truly close games. I'd say I've probably had more close games in 10th edition than I have had in, especially competitively. If I was going to be brutally honest about this whole thing, I think that 40k players probably think, or they say they want flavor, but really they want balance. Honestly, I can tell you right now, when I mained 40k, I didn't play bot action, I didn't play old world, I didn't play anything else. When I mained 40k, all I was interested in is getting the game more balanced. And the thing that I used to complain about the most was the imbalance of the game. I don't know if it's maybe the difference between fantasy and sci-fi, historicals and sci-fi, and the fact that maybe sci-fi is a little bit more scientific. As a result, maybe taps into that slightly more analytical part of the human brain. But I honestly think that 40k players, even if they complain about a lack of flavor, even if they don't realize it, subconsciously probably want more balance. And for me, I think as someone who's been smashing the competitive scene very hard for the last 12 months, getting that one taste of flavor was genuinely enlightening. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think. If you're watching this live, down in chat. And if you're watching this post live, down in the comment section below. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And of course, as always, see you guys next time. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously, guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.